When we think of performance trucks, we think of the Ford Raptor or the Dodge TRX now. But the thing is, what does General Motors bring to the table when it comes to performance trucks? GoneDrivin. For today's video, I have my hands on the 2022 Chevrolet Silverado ZR2, and this might be the closest thing that General Motors makes for a performance truck. And believe it or not, the ZR2 is the most expensive Silverado you can get. Yeah, that's right, it's more expensive than the high country trim level, and today we're gonna see if that price tag is actually worth it. I personally think that the ZR2 is Chevy and GM's answer to the Ford Raptors and the Dodge TRX, but I personally think that this truck is a lot more calmed down and subtle than those trucks that I mentioned before. And I personally feel like this truck is specifically focused on the off-roading element, and unfortunately I didn't have a chance to off-road this truck, but we'll still see everything around this car. The front end of the Silverado is probably my favorite part. I feel like it looks so aggressive and just so mean. We've got these nice big tow hooks here in case you're off-roading and you're gonna pull someone out, you have them there for you. You've also got the Chevy logo with an exposed logo, so you can actually put your hand through here, which is kind of cool. You've also got a red outline here, which looks really nice, and then we've got this massive black grille with the ZR2 logo right over here, just to remind other drivers that this is a ZR2, not just any regular Silverado. And we've also got these lights here, which look very cool, very nice at night. I'll put a clip of them. We've also got some fog lights, I would say, right here on the bottom, and then we've got these newly redesigned headlights, which look really, really cool, especially the C-shaped here. I'll put a clip of that in a moment here, but personally, I would take this front end over the Raptor and the TRX. And also, speaking of the front end, we actually have a skid plate underneath the ZR2, so if you're going off-roading, you're protected with the skid plate, which is awesome, with lots of ground clearance if you want to take those trails and those off-roads so powerfully. Under the hood of the ZR2, you've got a massive 6.2-liter V8 engine that produces 420 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of torque. So fuel economy, yeah, we don't know what that is when you have a ZR2 because it is absolutely atrocious, but that 6.2-liter V8 is just phenomenal and it sounds really good, which we'll put a clip of in a moment. And speaking of the fuel economy, Chevy does claim that the 6.2-liter V8 comes with a dynamic fuel management system, which basically means that different cylinders of the engine turn off depending on the driving that you're doing. So if you don't need all 8 cylinders, it might go down all the way to 2 and anything in between that, which is kind of cool, but still the fuel economy, it's hurtful. From the side of the ZR2, we've got this nice plastic cladding right over here and a ZR2 logo, again, to remind drivers that you're driving a ZR2. We've also got these nice big fat Wrangler tires with the 18-inch rims to go off-roading and take on any road again, which is really cool. We've also got folding mirrors, which is a cool little touch that I saw, or that I noticed from GM. It looks very nice, it looks pretty sleek. Again, got some plastic cladding at the bottom. We've also got some little sidebars here. This is to prevent the car from scratching or getting messed up if you do, again, take it off-roading. So there's no actual side steps that retract or detract with this truck. Bit unfortunate in my opinion, especially when you're trying to get into this truck. It's a little bit painful, I'm not gonna lie to you, because you can't really step on these, but it is what it is, especially if you're taking this truck off-roading. This is gonna help you quite a bit. Also got keyless entry here, and overall, from the side, the Silverado looks pretty much identical to all the Silverados, so it's basically business in the back. And also, something that is probably very important to potential ZR2 owners is the suspension in this truck. So you've got an independent front suspension. You've also got multi-matic dampers, which is very, very cool. In terms of driving this car, we'll see that in a little bit when we go for a drive, but it's got some crazy, really big hydraulics that I actually do not know enough about, but there are hydraulics and I know this thing can go off-roading. The rear end of the Silverado ZR2 pretty much remains the same as a lot of other models and a lot of other trims, and actually a lot of other generations, which is kind of unfortunate. So for this model year's Silverado, Chevy decided to change the front end and the interior, which is phenomenal. But the back basically remains unchanged, which is a little disappointing. So we've got the same taillights that we've been seeing in a lot of other Silverados. We've got a ZR2 badge right over here, as well as a little bit of a footstep area here. And we've got the multi-pro tailgate to open up. So you just press this button here, it comes down, and then you press the button again if you want to step into the back area. So you just press the button right over here, goes down, you press this, you get the little thing out, and then you get in, and boom. The bed of the ZR2 basically remains the same as all the other Silverados, not really any big differences. We've got a 120 volt plug right over here, some lights to illuminate the bed, and that's about it. But now, I think it's time that we check out the best part of the Silverado, and that is the interior. All right, so currently in the inside of the ZR2, and I gotta say, it is definitely a refreshing interior from the past generations, especially the two massive screens that we've got here in the middle. Now, speaking of the screen sizes, we've got an infotainment screen that is 13.4 inches. Then we've also got a screen in the gauge cluster that is 12.1 inches, altogether coming up to a total of 25 inches of just screens in this interior of the ZR2. Apart from the screen though, there are a couple things that they carried over from the previous generation Silverado. So the steering wheel here, it's basically the same as the last year's model. Nothing really changed there, as well as the paddle shifters. The gear shifter is actually new though, so you don't have the column shifter anymore, you have it down here, which I prefer, honestly speaking. I love that. You've also got a climate control, a newly redesigned climate control area, which is pretty nice as well. I love the hard buttons. You can also control the climate with the screen up here, but besides that, there are a couple of changes here and there, and we're gonna go through that right now. On the left side of the steering, we have some buttons here to control the heads-up display that this ZR2 is spec'd out with, and that's probably one of my favorite features that GM makes in a lot of their cars is the heads-up display. They don't miss the mark ever on it, and with the trucks especially, it's very nice. We've got a 15-inch heads-up display in front of me, which is very nice, very configurable, and it's functional. It works really, really well, which is awesome. Then you've also got on the left side here some controls for your drivetrain mode, so you can go from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive, whether that's four-wheel drive low or high or whatever else it might be. You can also change the actual drive setting of this car, so you can go from normal, off-roading to trailering, which is kind of cool. I do wish that this car came equipped with sport mode. I feel like you could have a little bit more fun with that, but at the end of the day, I don't think GM was directly trying to compete with Raptor and the TRXs, so didn't really think of that. So the right side of the steering wheel is where the highlight of the interior really starts, I feel like, especially with the 13.4-inch screen that we've got. It's very functional, very nice, and very easy to use. It's also got, Google Assistant built into it, so it's basically an Android screen, Android system. Very nice though, very easy to use. There are a couple of glitches and bugs here and there, but you know what? I don't really seem to be too concerned with those because I'm sure those can be fixed up or patched up over time. The climate control features here that we've got, very, very nice. I love how all the buttons have this little rugged feeling to them, which is really nice. I think it just adds to the overall image and the characterness of the ZR2. Then you've also got a couple of buttons here which also just scream ruggedness, which is really cool. So you've got some buttons to lock your front and rear suspension, as well as hill descent control, your lane keep assist, your parking sensors. So some of the buttons that you're going to be needing, from time to time, you have them easily accessible there, which is very nice. And as for the center console area, it's very spacious. I gotta say, it is a little bit dirty. Please don't mind that. We've got a tray right over here, as well as a little tray here, a very skinny one, to probably put some coins, maybe your keys. That's about it. You've got another tray right behind the gear shifter, and then your two cup holders. Unfortunately, they're not heated or cooled, which is a little bit disappointing, especially because this truck is a $90,000 truck. You would expect heated and cooled cup holders to be there, but it is what it is. You've also got this massive armrest here with lots of storage area underneath it. So, you can see I can literally fit all my hand underneath here, which is very nice. It's not refrigerated or anything like that. You've also got a wireless charging mat right over here. So if you want to, put your phone, although my phone doesn't really fit into it, so it has to be a smaller phone because, I have an iPhone 13 Pro, not even like the big one, and it still doesn't fit. So a little bit disappointing again, but it is what it is. But overall, I would say the center console here is very spacious. You've got a USB-C port here, as well as a USB port by the climate control area, also under the armrest area, which is very nice. And you would think the trays would stop here, but actually there's also a big massive tray here to keep your phone, which is actually really cool. I feel like, when you get into the car and, you want to just have your phone right over here and just get straight to driving, it's just accessible from here, which is a cool placement of the mobile tray. I like it. And you've also got cup holders here. But before we go into the back seat, let's go ahead and check out the interior screens. All right, so now let's go ahead and look at the screens of the Silverado's interior. So let's go ahead and start up the truck here. Sounds pretty nice, as we already know. So we've got the 12.1-inch gauge cluster screen here, and in the middle we've got an infotainment screen. So we'll start off with the infotainment screen. So like I mentioned earlier, it is powered by a Google system, so it is an Android-based system. You've got your Google Maps as your standard navigation system in this car, then Google Assistant, Play Store, download some apps if you wanted to. You've also got the Google News and Google Podcasts apps, so lots of Google things going on. We've also got wireless CarPlay and Android Auto as available in this car, which is very nice. It looks very nice as well. Takes up this part of the screen, so adequate screen sizing for sure. You've also got your camera tile here, lots of different camera angles as spec'd out in this truck specifically. So you want to get a bird's eye view of the car, you can get that. You can get cameras underneath the car, on the side of the car, lots of different angles, which is really, really nice.
And overall, I would say the screen is very responsive. It works really well. You know, there are some bugs and glitches, as I mentioned earlier, but you know what? It's not the deal breaker, and it's not the worst thing either. You can also there's a tile for your trailer. If you do have one, you can quickly see it on the right side of the screen. You can also completely collapse that if you wanted to. So as you can see here, we can have that open and we can have that closed, which is very nice. But overall, I would say the infotainment screen is very, very nice. All right, now let's go ahead and look at the gauge cluster screen of the Silverado. So the middle area here is pretty much the same as the previous Silverados, which personally speaking is a little bit disappointing. I really wish that GM would have changed that as well, because you know that would have really been nice to see. But it's basically the same thing that you've seen in other Silverados. But you know, for the left side and the right side, you know, for the speedometer and the rev meter on the right, you can actually customize that area. So you know, you go up here, you can put your temperature, your tire pressure, fuel economy average, whatever you like. You can have your navigation information in the gauge cluster, which is kind of disappointing. You know, especially considering the fact that, you know, it's 2022. A lot of cars have navigation in the gauge clusters now, but you know, this truck unfortunately doesn't have it. You can also customize a lower gauge. So for the lower gauge, it can be a maximum customization, medium, or minimum. So you know, you can't really customize what you want, it just does it for you. But I would say overall, this interior redesign is what the Silverado needed, and I think it's amazing. Now let's go ahead and look at the back seats.
Okay, so looking at the back seat of the Silverado ZR2, again, very spacious, lots of headroom, which we'll see in a minute, but the seats, very cool again that you can fold it up here. You can stick anything that's large or anything that's big just underneath the seats. You can put a fishing rod, maybe, whatever else you might have. Very, very cool storage use area here under the seats, so you can fold this back down. And then you can also open this little area here to put more stuff. So that's behind each of this back seats. Again, I'm not really sure what you would put behind this area here, but it is available for you if you wanted to, you know, put anything away. You've also got seat pouches here. Now let's get into the truck itself. And again, I'm at 5'8", so as you can see, sitting in here, lots of space still available for me for my headroom, as well as legroom, lots available. And you've also got an armrest area here to put your hand for the backseat passengers. You've also got a USB-C port and a USB port. And you've also got heated seats for the back passengers. But besides that, it is a pretty simple interior for the back passengers. But to be honest with you, I don't have any complaints with it. I think it looks very, very nice. All right, so currently behind the wheel of the Chevrolet ZR2, and I gotta say the biggest highlight of driving this truck is the fact that it's got a 6.2 liter V8 engine under the hood, and it gets going. It sounds really, really nice. I'm gonna floor right now off a bit of a rolling launch, so here we go. And it gets going. I mean, it's 420 horsepower, 460 pound-feet of torque, so not bad, you know, for a large, massive truck, utilitarian truck. But I gotta say, that V8 engine sounds really nice. I do wish sometimes that there was a way to turn down the noise, especially when you're doing city driving, or, you know, just leaving your neighborhood. You want to be a little bit more quieter, but unfortunately that is not an option when you get a 6.2 liter V8. And now, as I mentioned earlier as well, the ZR2 is more of the off-roady version of the Silverado, so it's a trim for people who really want to take their truck outdoors. They want to go into the forest, you know, they want to take things off-roading, they want to take things to the next level with their truck. You know, it's by no means a comfort or luxury truck. You're going to go for the high country trim if you want that, or with the ZR2, it's completely about the off-roading. And you know, having said that though, the ZR2 itself is rather comfortable, especially, you know, this type of suspension this car has. It's got the Multimatic damper system in the ZR2, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is the first ever to have in a Silverado. So it's definitely very comfortable when you hit potholes. And I know that damper system is largely in part to make sure, you know, when you're going off-roading, when you're on trails and, you know, you're on uneven surfaces, you have the best suspension available to you. But even on just regular roads, because I've done mostly regular road driving with this car, with this truck, it's been very comfortable, and I love that. And then in terms of the infotainment screen, as well as the technology in the ZR2, it's adequate, it's functional, it's very, very purposeful, and I love that, especially, you know, the fact that GM and Chevrolet hasn't, you know, moved past the buttons yet. You know, you have your touchscreen, but you also have hard buttons for specific things. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, your lane keep assist, your parking sensors, your hazards. If you want to unlock or lock your rear axles or your front axles, you have all that available. And climate control buttons are still buttons, not on your screen. You have that as an option if you want, but you have that also as buttons. Now, in terms of the way, you know, the ZR2 handles, we're gonna go take some winding roads right now, and it really takes corners pretty well. I mean, by all means, it is a large and massive vehicle, so, you know, you can't just expect to be tossing it around into, you know, sharp corners and stuff like that, but it's still, it is very, you know, it's very confident in corners, and especially the steering itself feels very, very nice, very solid, and, you know, when you take on corners, it responds very, very nicely. So we're taking this sharp corner here, and as you can see, you know, the truck turns just fine, you know, handling wise, just very nice, very tight handling, especially, you know, when you take on some of these sharp bends, like you're, you know, entering a highway or anything like that, you have all that, you know, confidence when you take these corners. And in terms of other technology available in the ZR2, you also have adaptive cruise control, which is very nice, very functional. You know, we've seen this in other products that GM has made. It does not have the autonomous driving. Unfortunately, you know, I know the GMC Sierra comes with it, the GMC Sierra Ultimate Denali, I believe that's what the trim level is called now. But unfortunately, nothing like that for the Silverado, which is a little disappointing. I get it that GMC is the more premium segment of the Silverado, but at the end of the day, I feel like Silverado owners should still have an option to get that feature if they wanted to. So definitely a little bit disappointing there, but we've also got our lane keep assist, as I mentioned, which is very nice because of the fact that the seats vibrate as opposed to, you know, you have audio or, you know, some sort of other signals. It's the seats that vibrate when you're out of line, which is really, really nice. I love that. I personally feel like the $80,000 price tag that this truck has is a little bit steep, especially, you know, when you compare it to the Raptor or the Dodge TRX. It's definitely very, very pricey. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, but at the end of the day, you get a pretty quality GM product, and, you know, so that's something you can, you know, beat around every day. It's got all the functionalities, all the luxuries. It's got a nice big engine into it as well. You know, that's probably the biggest benefit, I'll say, or the biggest advantage in the Silverado ZR2 is the fact that it's got a big V8 engine. You know, the Ford Raptor doesn't have it. I know the Dodge TRX still does, but, you know, that's probably going to be phased out very quickly. But, you know, I think this is probably the closest thing that GM is going to make to a performance pickup truck. You know, which sucks, personally speaking, because I know GM has all the capabilities and all the resources to make a monster pickup truck. You know, you've got the Corvette, you've got Blackwing series, so why can't you make a Blackwing series of the pickup trucks? You know, that's something that I always contemplated with GM. You know, that's something that maybe in the future they can come out with or roll out, but with the way things are going, with electric vehicles coming in the process of everything, I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. So this is probably the best thing you get from GM for a performance truck. And with that, my review on the 2022 Chevrolet Silverado ZR2 comes to an end. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to hit the like button, of course. Make sure to subscribe to the channel.